Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome back. Hold on. Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome back to another episode of Soldiers Talk the Podcast. I'm your host, Staff Sergeant McPherson, and on this show we discuss military topics with current and prior service members. Today we'll be going through the regulation, supply regulation. We're going to go through AR 735-5 for the supply sergeants out there. We're just gonna go ahead and get right into it. Okay, gonna pull it up real quick. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. Uh, this is AR 735-5, Section 2, accountability and responsibility. So we're gonna go through this regulation. So accountability and responsibility. So I know you guys pretty much know what accountability and responsibility is. This regulation basically gonna break it down for you to let you know what is accountability and responsibility. So most supply sergeants, they know that accountability and responsibility, an example would be probably the change of command. It would probably be change of hand receipt holder, change of sub hand receipt holders, and stuff like that. That's when you have the basically a change of responsibility, and you also taking accountability. So in the regulation 2-7, accountability said accountability is the obligation of a person to keep records of property, documents, or funds. These records show identification, data, gains, losses, dues in, dues out, balances on hand or in use. So that's the accountability part. So you basically taking accountability anytime there is a change of hand receipt holder, any type of way, you want to make sure that person, the other person signs the actual hand receipt. He's taking accountability and responsibility. So 2-8, it says responsibility is the obligation of an individual to ensure government property and funds entrusted to their possession, command, or supervision are properly used and cared for, and that proper custody, safekeeping, and disposition are provided for. So that's basically saying that it's the obligation of the person to basically assume responsibility for it. So that person is uh responsible for taking care of that property, whatever that property is, making sure that they safe keeping that property and disposition are provided. So yeah, that's just basically saying that is in their possession. And accountability is keeping records of it. So that'll be the paper trail as far as the accountability and responsibility is whoever's responsible for that. That's what they have to take care of that property. So the types of responsibilities are shown also in this chapter. I'm gonna show you guys the figure 2.1 where it shows the different types of responsibility. So the types of responsibility. So first you got the command responsibility. And it says the commanders are obligated to ensure all government property within their command is properly used and cared for, and that proper custody, safekeeping, and disposition are provided. Command responsibility is inherent in command and cannot be delegated. It is evidenced by assignment to a command position at any level that includes the following. So ensuring the security of all property of the command, whether in use or in storage. Observing subordinates to ensure that activities contribute to their property custody, care, use, safekeeping, and disposition of all property within the command. Enforcing all security, safety, and accounting requirements. Taking administrative or disciplinary measures when necessary. So I'm just gonna run down some examples. I would say so far as the alpha, far as some examples, far as this command responsibility. So it says one of them says ensuring the security of all property of the command, whether in use or in storage. So that's basically the commander has to make sure that that property is stored, make sure that property is secured wherever it is. It's their responsibility also to making sure that property is secured. The second one, observing subordinates to ensure that activities contribute to proper custody. So they also have to uh advise their hand receipt holders on what type of property they have and also what they do with the property. So uh it's also the commander's responsibility whether certain equipment is damaged or not. So if uh just say let me see an example. So the commander just want to advise the hand receipt holders on making sure that they are contributing to the proper custody and care of the equipment. So enforcing all security, safety, and accounting requirements. So that's again, so enforcing all security. So uh all OCIE stuff like that has to be locked up in a cage. Uh anything class 7 needs to be signed for. It's basically all the safety and accounting requirements. So yeah, so that I'm trying to figure out a way to explain it a little more. But yeah, so the commander has to enforce all security, safety, and accounting requirements. So taking administrative or disciplinary measures when necessary. So this is basically when the commander notice negligence towards the property in any type of way. When there's a flipper or a statement of charges, this commander has to take administrative or disciplinary measures. Okay, so the second type of responsibility is supervisory responsibility. The obligation says the obligation of a supervisor to ensure all government property issued to or used by their subordinates is properly used and cared for, and that proper custody, safekeeping, and disposition are provided. It is inherent in all supervisory positions. It is not contingent upon signed receipts or responsibility statements and cannot be delegated. It arises because of assignment to a specific person and includes the following: providing proper guidance and direction, enforcing all security, safety, and accounting measures, maintains a supervisory climate that will facilitate and ensure the proper care and use of government property. So this is the supervisor's responsibility. So they got to make sure that they provide the proper guidance and direction as far as uh who's going to be signed for that property. And so that's the commanders basically giving basically the sub hand receipt holders. So the sub hand receipt holders will be the supervisory responsibility for some of the equipment. For some of the equipment. So they also have to enforce all security and safety and accounting requirements, maintain a supervisory climate that will facilitate and ensure the proper care and use of government property. That's the supervisory responsibility. Usually that's the sub-hand receipt holder. And so direct responsibility. The obligation of a person to ensure all government property for which they have receipted is properly used and cared for, and that the proper custody, safekeeping, and disposition are provided. Direct responsibility results from assignment as an accountable officer, receipt of formal written delegation, or acceptance of the property on hand receipt from an accountable officer. Commanders or directors of separate TDA activities will determine and assign in writing those individuals who have direct responsibility for property. So say separate TDA activities will determine and assign in writing those individuals who will have direct responsibility. So as far as in writing, so this is direct responsibility. Let's read custodial responsibility first. So it says the obligation of individual for property in storage awaiting issue or turning to exercise reasonable and prudent actions to properly care for and ensure proper custody, safekeeping, and disposition of the property are provided. Custodial responsibilities results from assignment as a supply sergeant, supply custodian, supply clerk, or warehouse person, and is rated by an answer directed to the accountable officer or the individual having direct responsibility for the property. Responsibilities include the following: ensuring the security of all property stored within the supply room and storage annexes belonging to the supply room or SSA is adequate. Observing subordinates to ensure that activities contribute to the proper custody, care, safekeeping, and disposition of all property within the supply room and storage annexes belonging to the supply room or SSA. Enforcing all security, safety, and accounting requirements. When unable to enforce any of these, reporting the problem to their immediate supervisor. Personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is the last one. So the obligation of a person to exercise reasonable and prudent actions to properly use, care for, safeguard, and of all the government property issued for, acquired for, or converted to a person's exclusive use with or without receipt. Okay, so that's the last level. That's down to the usual level, which is a personal responsibility. So I had that wrong. So personal responsibility would be would be basically the equipment that is signed out for. Supply sergeants will usually be the custodial responsibility. Direct responsibility usually be the sub-hand receipt holders. Supervisor responsibility is usually probably the commanders. And the command responsibility is like the brigade commander, higher than the commander. So those are the types of responsibilities. So responsibility relationships. Say command and supervisory responsibility depend on the location of the property within the chain of command. This responsibility is part of a job or position and is carried by assuming that command or supervisor position. It cannot be delegated. So this type of responsibility can't be delegated. That's what it's saying. It depends on the location of the property within the chain of command. Direct responsibility is a formal assignment of property responsibility to a person within the supply chain who has the property within their custody, but not necessarily in their possession or for their use. So that's usually the commander. They got it in their possession. They They have the property within their custody, but not necessarily in their possession for their use. Accountable officers always have direct, told you, responsibility unless it has been specifically assigned to another person. Accountable officers may delegate such responsibility by written designation or by issue of the property on a hand receipt, which is the sub hand receipt. Personal responsibility always accompanies the physical possession of a property. That's down to the user level. Responsibility for public funds. A person who receives or handles public funds has personal responsibility for safeguarding those funds until they are deposited with a dispersing officer. That person is financially liable for the full value of the loss of funds when the loss is attributable to the personal negligence or misconduct. Okay, so I'm gonna go over the relationship between accountability and responsibility. So, relationship between accountability and responsibility. Accountability pertains to maintaining formally prescribed property records for a property or sales account. It is an obligation officially assigned to a specific person and may not be delegated. Responsibility pertains to the care, custody, safekeeping, and disposition of government property. The specific type of responsibility depends on the relationship of the person to the property. Accountability and the 5 types of responsibility are separate obligations. Hold on. Accountability and the 5 types of responsibility are separate obligations. They are incurred for separate reasons. Accountability and each type of responsibility carries specific duties. Financial liability can be assessed against any person who fails through negligence or misconduct to perform those duties and where such failure is the approximate cost of the loss to the government. The appointment as an accountable officer for a stock record account and or a property book account carries with it responsibilities as follows. At the stock record account level, the appointment as an accountable officer carries with it direct responsibility for all property carried on stock accounting records. This direct responsibility may be further delegated to the storage supervisor. At the property book level, the appointment as a PBO carries with it direct responsibility for all the property carried on the property book records that has not been issued on a hand receipt. Property issued by a PBO on hand receipt, called the primary hand receipt, carries with it the delegation of direct responsibility for a property listed. Further hand receipting, sub hand receipting does not transfer direct responsibility nor relieve the primary hand receipt holder of their duties. Any member of the Army, civilian or military, may be charged with responsibility for property. A contractor is charged with direct responsibility for specifically identified GFP provided to the contractor under the terms of the contract. Okay, so there you guys go. We basically went over session 2. We went over section 2 and AR 735-5, accountability and responsibility. So that breaks it all down, the types of responsibilities, and the relationship between accountability and responsibility. So it's different types of responsibility as it goes up the chain of command, and accountability is basically stays the same. It does varies with the different responsibilities, but accountability really stays the same throughout each one. Everybody's responsible for the property. But uh the person who's personally responsible for the property, that's the person who can be found liable for most of the time. Sometimes that can be this person that can found liable for a misuse or let me see. Uh Disciplinary measures. That's the person that can be found liable for that. Um really it just depends on the situation sometimes dealing with the accountability part. Cause you got some people who don't know how to take care of certain equipment and it's not their fault. It's whoever assigned them that equipment. So if I if I tell you to come sign for a Humvee without telling you that this Humvee something wrong with it or uh taking the certain measures to inform you what's going on with it and how to take care of it, that'll leave me liable also as well because I didn't let you know. I didn't tell you how to take care of this equipment. So there you guys go. So this has been another episode. Make sure you guys like the video. If y'all like these regulation videos, I'm gonna keep them coming. We gonna I'm gonna do it. So this is just a section. This is just section 2 of the regulation. Make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you follow the podcast on Instagram at Soldiers Talk the Podcast. Also on YouTube at Soldiers Talk the Podcast. And this has been another episode of Soldiers Talk the Podcast. And I'll see you guys in formation.